Today, I'm taking you through 10 of the most remote small towns in North Carolina, where every stop comes with a story that sounds made up, but isn't. If you think rural America is just empty roads, old houses, and a couple gas stations, this video is going to change your mind in the first few minutes. You'll meet a town born from freedom that the river tried to erase again and again. A place where a gym once started out as a kid's slingshot ammo. And a tiny community where you can sift the dirt and pull out ancient shark teeth with your own hands. Then we'll step into a cowboy town where cars basically don't belong downtown, climb to the highest town in the east with a hidden land of Oz on the mountain, and finish inside an abandoned mill village that became District 12 in real life. The question is, which town is going to hit you the hardest? Because it was way closer than you ever imagined. Number 10. Proctor. Here's a weird question to start with. Why would you need to book a boat ride just to visit a town that doesn't even have people anymore? That's Proctor, tucked way back in the Hazel Creek area on the north shore of North Carolina's Great Smoky Mountains. On a map, it looks close to everything, but in real life, it feels like it's behind glass. No quick highway, no casual detour. If you want to reach the heart of it, you either hike deep into the backcountry, or you cross Fontana Lake by boat and then keep going until the world goes quiet. And that quiet is the point. Proctor didn't fade out because people stopped caring. Proctor got cut off. Back in World War II, the TVA built Fontana Dam, starting in 1942 and finishing in 1944. The goal was power, and the dam did what dams do. It changed everything. Water rose, roads disappeared, and whole pockets of the North Shore became separated from the rest of the world. The National Park story is blunt about it. More than 1,000 residents across these lakeshore communities had to leave, not because they wanted a fresh start, because the map got rewritten. What's left now is not a ghost town in the Halloween sense. It's a missing chapter. Trees took over, buildings fell apart, the old rhythms stopped. But the people who came from here never really stopped thinking of it as home. That's why one of the most unbelievable parts of Proctor is also the simplest. The town comes back in a way, but only for a day and mostly around a cemetery. Every year, families return for decoration days, a tradition that's been going on since the late 1970s. They ride boats in, sometimes on organized shuttles from places like Cable Cove, and they climb up to the Proctor Cemetery. There are more than 200 graves up there. Folks clear weeds, straighten things up, and stand around swapping stories like the town is still right over the hill. It's not loud. It's not showy. It's just steady, like a promise they made to their own people. And speaking of promises, Proctor has another symbol that hits you in the gut: the road to nowhere. After the lake cut the old route, there was supposed to be a replacement road along the North Shore. It never got finished. The project stopped in 1972, leaving this strange stretch of pavement that looks like it's going somewhere important, then just doesn't. Years later, there was a $52 million settlement in 2007, and the agreement was finalized in 2017. But money doesn't reconnect a childhood. Money doesn't rebuild a "we used to live right there." Oh, when I think about Proctor, I don't think spooky. I think progress has a bill. Big decisions can be necessary, even smart, but they still cost real people real pieces of their lives. The thing that surprises me most is how the community didn't turn that loss into noise. They turned it into a ritual. So if you ever hear someone say rural America is empty, remember Proctor. Sometimes it's not empty. Sometimes it's just underwater or off the road, still being kept alive by people who refuse to forget. And the next town on our list proves that vanishing can happen in a totally different way. Number 9, Mortimer. Let me mess with your head for a second. Imagine you're standing by a clear mountain creek, people are laughing, somebody's flipping burgers at a campsite, kids are splashing like it's the safest place on earth. Now imagine that a few steps away, you're staring at concrete foundations and broken stone where a whole town used to be. That's Mortimer. Today it sits deep in the Wilson Creek area of Pisgah National Forest, the kind of place you don't accidentally pass through. You drive into tight curves and thick trees until cell service gets shaky and the world starts sounding like water and wind. And then you realize the wild, beautiful creek everyone came for is the same force that erased the town in the first place. Mortimer was a real company town, not a camp with a few cabins. Around 1904, it grew around Ritter lumber, and at its peak, it supported about 800 people. A small world built on timber. Work whistles, supply runs, families, routines. The whole town's heartbeat was tied to what the forest could give and what the creek could carry out. Here's the twist. Mortimer didn't die quietly because people got bored and moved away. Mortimer got hit, then it got hit again. The first big blow comes with the 1916 disaster season in the mountains. This wasn't normal rain. In parts of western North Carolina, the storm dumped more than 22 inches in 24 hours near Grandfather Mountain. Think about that for a second. That is not bad weather. That is the sky deciding your plans do not matter. Floodwaters tore through valleys, fires followed in places, and towns like Mortimer took a punch they never fully recovered from. But Mortimer tried. That's the part most people skip. It limped forward into the next decades, and you can still feel that stubbornness in the history of the area. Even during the Great Depression era, the land around here saw work camps like the Civilian Conservation Corps. The region kept moving, kept building, kept hoping. Then August 13th, 1940 happened. A massive flood surged down Wilson Creek, and people still talk about it like a final verdict. One reported crest point gets told is around 94 feet. Whether you picture a wall of water or a roaring river that refuses to stay in its banks, the message is the same. After that, Mortimer wasn't a town anymore. It was a memory with scraps left behind. And now comes the strangest part for a video like this. Mortimer is dead, but it's also alive every weekend. There's a campground right there with about 17 sites. People come to swim, fish, kayak, and cool off in the same corridor that once supported an entire lumber town. You can even take a tiny walk like the Thorpe's Creek Trail, only about a quarter mile, and it drops you into waterfall country like nothing bad ever happened here. But if you look, the pass is still sitting out in the open. Old foundations, remnants of industrial structures, hints of rail and bridge piers that once moved timber like clockwork. It's not spooky. It's almost worse than spooky because it's real. Nature did not haunt Mortimer. Nature simply reclaimed it. Rural America does not always get pushed to the edge by jobs or politics. Sometimes it gets pushed by geography itself. A town can have work, families, momentum, and one season of extreme weather can turn it into a picnic spot with a backstory nobody sees unless you tell them. So if Proctor was a story about being cut off, Mortimer is a story about being washed away, twice. And the next place on our list proves that disappearing can happen for a completely different reason. Number 8, Coal Glen. Quick question. When you picture coal mining in America, where do you picture it? Most people say up in the mountains, Appalachia, black dust, steep hollers, that whole vibe. Now, here's the part that messes with your brain. Coal Glen isn't up there. It's down in the Piedmont, the kind of landscape you drive through on autopilot. Trees, quiet roads, a couple mailboxes, maybe a gas station if you're lucky. And that's exactly why this story works. Because it's literally hidden, not just in the woods, under the ground, under your assumptions. There's a historical marker out on US 15/501 near Walter Bright Road, and it's one of those signs you could pass 100 times without noticing. But it's basically a warning label for the past. It says this place saw the worst mining accident in North Carolina. And the town name, that changed too. Back in 1922, a little community called Farmville even renamed itself Coal Glen, like it was leaning into the identity. This is who we are now. Coal, work, paychecks, a future. The mine itself had been dug deeper years earlier. In 1918, a company opened a shaft, and by the mid-1920s, that underground world was routine. Just another workday. Until May 27th, 1925. Around 9:40 in the morning, with about 70 men down in the mine, a blast ripped through the place. 53 miners died. In a small community, that number isn't just a statistic. That's fathers, sons, neighbors you see every day. It's the kind of loss that doesn't just hurt families, it hollows out an entire town in one morning. People call it the state's worst mining accident. And it's also remembered as the deadliest industrial disaster in North Carolina history. Here's a detail locals still talk about, and I'll tell you straight, it's part legend, part chill down your spine. Some folks say the rats left the mine before the explosion, like the animals knew something the men couldn't. I'm not saying it's supernatural. I'm saying it's the kind of story people tell when they're trying to make sense of something that never should have happened. What hits me hardest is what came after. Coal Glen didn't just become a sad footnote. This disaster helped push the state toward the Workmen's Compensation Act in 1929. That's the part people miss. A tiny, forgotten place can still change the rules for everyone. The world quietly adjusts, and most of us never learned the name of the town that paid the price. The mine kept going for a while. It didn't shut down until 1953, and later in 1987, the ventilation shaft got sealed up. That's the visual I can't get out of my head. A whole chapter of labor and danger and grief closed off behind a blocked entrance on a back road. So here's the real twist. Coal Glen isn't an eerie ghost town you visit for thrills. It's worse in a different way. It's ordinary. You can drive right past the marker, right past the roads, and never know you're crossing over a story big enough to shake a state and then slip out of public memory. Progress has a bill, and in rural America, that bill is often paid quietly, under the ground, and then paved over by the next generation. And the next town on our list proves something else. Sometimes a place doesn't get buried by earth at all. Sometimes it disappears for an entirely different reason. Number 7. Princeville. If you didn't know what Princeville was, you'd probably drive right past it and never think twice. A small town by the Tar River, across from Tarboro, the kind of place that looks normal from the road. Quiet, modest, almost easy to overlook. But here's the unbelievable part. This little town carries one of the biggest stories in North Carolina, and it's been fighting to exist ever since it was born. Princeville started right after the Civil War's Freedom Hill in 1865, a place built by formerly enslaved people who wanted something that sounds simple but is actually huge, a town that belonged to them. Later in 1885, it incorporated as Princeville, named for Turner Prince, a local carpenter who helped shape the community. On paper, it's a small dot. In real life, it's a symbol of self-rule that shouldn't be hidden, but somehow is. Now, here's the twist that makes Princeville feel almost unfair. Freedom Hill was built on land nobody else wanted. It sits in the floodplain of the Tar River. So you've got this powerful idea, a town built out of freedom and determination, planted in a place where water is always waiting to take it back. That's not a spooky ghost story. That's a real-life fight with geography, and the river has swung hard. In 1999, Hurricane Floyd brought flooding so severe that people described Princeville as nearly wiped off the map. The town wasn't just dealing with a few inches of water, it was dealing with the kind of flood that changes your relationship with your own front porch. The kind that leaves you asking, do we rebuild or do we accept the river has won? Princeville rebuilt anyway. Then came Hurricane Matthew in 2016. And this is the moment that hits like a gut punch. More than 80% of the town flooded. Think about that. Not a neighborhood, not a few blocks. Most of the town. Homes, infrastructure, daily life, all swallowed again. That's when the story stops being only about survival and starts becoming about a decision. Because here's the hardest question Princeville has been forced to ask. What does it mean to save a town? After Matthew, plans focused on moving parts of Princeville to higher ground. The state helped the town purchase about 53 acres nearby for a new development area. and FEMA announced nearly $11 million to help with stormwater infrastructure for that higher land project. That sounds like hope. It sounds like a plan. It sounds like the smartest move in the world, but it also opens up the most human plot twist of all. If you move to survive, what happens to the soul of the original place? That's what Princeville represents to me. We talk about freedom like it's something you win once, then you're done. Princeville shows you another kind of freedom. The freedom to stay. The freedom to call a place home without being pushed out. Not by politics, not by economics, but by water. And I respect the town for this one reason. Princeville isn't famous because it's loud. Princeville is famous because it's stubborn. Every time a storm hits and the town is still standing afterward, it's basically saying, we're still here. Not for attention, for dignity. So if you want a hidden story in rural America, Princeville is it. A town born from freedom, tested by the river, and now facing a choice that feels impossible. Rebuild where history lives or move uphill to keep the community alive. And the next town on our list proves that not every unbelievable story is about water or weather. Sometimes the ground itself holds the secret. Number 6, Hiddenite. Let's start with the name because it sounds like a prank. Hiddenite. Like somebody literally named a town, we've got something you don't. And honestly, they kind of did. Hiddenite is a small, quiet spot in Alexander County, the kind of rural place where the land is mostly red dirt, trees, and long stretches of nothing to see here. It used to be called White Plains, and if you didn't know the backstory, you'd never guess this area once had a reputation for sulfur springs and health getaways. But the real reason people remember this place now is way stranger. Here's the unbelievable origin story. In 1879, a kid named George Warren was out plowing a field and kept finding these green stones. Not diamonds, not gold, just little green rocks. So he did what a kid would do. He pocketed them and used them as slingshot ammo. That's the part I love. A stone that could end up in a display case started out getting launched at birds. But the green rocks didn't stay a kid's secret. The family got them looked at, and it turned out they weren't just pretty. They were a mineral called spodumene, and the green gem variety became famous enough to get its own name, Hiddenite. Then the story takes a hard left into full-on America mode. A mineral expert named William Earl Hidden showed up in the area, and one version of the story says he came looking for platinum for Thomas Edison. The point is, suddenly you've got rural farmland connected to the biggest industrial names in the country. By 1881, there was even a company set up to mine here, and at one point the operation employed around 100 workers. One little field discovery turns into a whole local economy. That's wild. And here's where Hiddenite gets even better for a video like this, because it's not just history. You can still feel the treasure hunt vibe right now. There are places in the area where regular people come out, pay a small fee, and sift through dirt looking for gems like emeralds. It's the most rural version of the American dream. Get your hands dirty, maybe get lucky, and take home whatever you actually find. And yes, there are stories of big finds. One famous local tale involves a rough emerald around 71 carats that was cut into an 18.8 carat stone called the Carolina Queen. That's the kind of detail that makes people sit up a little straighter because it proves this isn't just souvenir shop hype. The ground here has coughed up real surprises. Now I'm going to give you the grown-up twist because every good treasure story has one. Hiddenite sounds like it should be exclusive, like it only exists right here. And for a long time, people talked about it that way, but if you dig into the mineral world, you'll see debates. Similar green spodumene has been found in other places, and some of it can fade in sunlight, which means not every Hiddenite stays that perfect green forever. Translation: even the gem has a complicated truth behind it, and that's why I think Hiddenite is such a perfect rural America story. It's not just look at the shiny thing, it's the feeling that life can still surprise you in the most ordinary places, and the reminder that even a miracle has fine print. Because sometimes the real treasure isn't what you pull out of the dirt, It's realizing you can still be amazed by the world right in the middle of nowhere. And the next town on our list proves that hidden doesn't always mean underground. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight on water. Number 5.
Aurora. If I told you there's a town in North Carolina where you can pull a shark tooth out of the dirt with your own hands, you probably assume I'm talking about some tourist trap on the coast. Nope. It's Aurora, a tiny little town down in Beaufort County tucked near South Creek and the Pamlico River. We're talking small. About 455 people in 2020. The whole town is barely over a square mile. Blink at the wrong time and you'll miss the turn. And here's the first twist. Aurora is smaller than the machine that surrounds it, because right next to this quiet place is a massive phosphate operation tied to a workforce around 1,000 people. So the town feels like a dot, but the industry around it is a giant. It's one of those rural America scenes where the work matters way beyond the local population. This little place helps feed agriculture, and most of the country has no idea. Now here's where Aurora gets unbelievable in the best way. This land used to be ocean.
Not a long time ago, like your grandparents. I mean millions of years ago. Around 15 to 20 million years back, this whole area was underwater, and it was packed with marine life. Sharks, whales, seals, coral, and that ancient world didn't vanish. It got buried. Then modern life showed up and accidentally unlocked it. Phosphate mining started here back in the mid-1960s. The mine and chemical plant were built around 1964, and the digging took off soon after. Companies changed hands over the years, but the effect stayed the same. They dug deep for material used in fertilizer, and the deeper they went, the more the past started coming up with the dirt. That's the part that blows my mind. People come here for a product that helps today's crops grow, and what they find along the way is a time capsule. Aurora's Fossil Museum opened to the public in 1978, and it's basically the town's front door to the prehistoric world sitting underneath it. They even talk about how the mine can reach roughly 160 feet below sea level. Picture that for a second. You're standing in a sleepy town, and right beside you is a hole that deep, pulling up pieces of an ocean that shouldn't even be here anymore. And it's not just look behind glass, you can actually do it yourself. There's a fossil park with dig pits nicknamed the Pits of the Pungo, where visitors sift through fossil-rich material and hunt for Miocene era finds. The rules make it feel real, like you're stepping into a weird little deal between the town and the past. Your sifter can't be bigger than 12 by 12 inches. Tool handles have to be under 36 inches. Small hand tool, small movements, patient eyes. It's not a theme park, it's a treasure hunt with guardrails. And yes, people find shark teeth, sometimes big ones. There are stories of megalodon teeth in the area. And even low-grade teeth can carry a price tag around $350. I'm not telling you to come here to get rich. I'm telling you that the junk in this dirt can be worth more than a fancy dinner, which makes every handful feel like it might change your day. My personal takeaway is simple. Places like Aurora remind you rural America still hides real wonder, not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind you only discover if you're willing to stop, get your hands dirty, and look down instead of straight ahead. Because in Aurora, the most unbelievable thing isn't the town size. It's the fact that the ground beneath it is older than any human story, and it's still giving up secrets. And the next town on our list proves that not every hidden story is buried in dirt. Sometimes it's hiding in the rules a town chooses to live by. Number 4, Love Valley. Let me ask you something. What if I told you there's a town in North Carolina where your car basically becomes useless the moment you arrive? Not because the road is broken, not because there's a storm, but because downtown belongs to horses. Welcome to Love Valley, a tiny little place tucked into a valley in the brushy mountains of Iredell County. It's the kind of hidden town that isn't hidden by distance so much as hidden by disbelief. People live in this state their whole lives and still don't know there's a real Old West-style town sitting out here, quietly doing its own thing. And the best part is the first rule of the place. You don't drive into the main strip like normal. You park outside and walk in. The streets are dirt, the buildings look like they belong in a Western movie. There are hitching posts, wooden storefronts, signs that feel like they should say saloon even if they don't. And then you hear it, that sound you do not expect in 2026. Hoofbeats, not for show, not for a parade, just normal life. Here's the twist. Love Valley didn't accidentally become this way. One guy, Andy Barker, started building it in 1954. Not a theme park, not a weekend set, but an actual community with a Western identity on purpose. Then on April 2nd, 1963, it officially became an incorporated town. That's wild to me, because most places this small are trying to look more modern, not less. Love Valley leaned the other direction and committed. And there's a detail that makes it feel even more real than the cowboy sidewalks. Up on a hill overlooking the town, there's a little church. Barker wanted this to be a Christian community, not just a costume. That church is like the quiet reminder that people weren't only building a look, they were building a way of life. Now, the population is the funniest part. In 2010, it was about 90 people. More recent estimates float closer to around 155. That's not a typo. You could fit the whole town in a decent-sized restaurant and still have room for dessert. So how does a place that small feel like it has energy? Because Love Valley punches above its weight. It's known for horse events and rodeo culture. People come out for the vibe, the trails, the brushy mountain scenery, the feeling that you stepped into a different set of rules for a day. And if you want a little extra spice for the story, there's even a past chapter where the town got tangled in controversy decades ago with a rock festival that rubbed locals the wrong way. It's like Love Valley had to fight to define what it wanted to be, and once it did, it held the line. That's what makes this town stick in my head. A lot of rural America feels like it's being dragged along by whatever happens next. Jobs leaving, storms hitting, people moving away. Love Valley is different. It's rural America writing its own script. It's a community basically saying, we're not going to blend in. If you want to enter our world, you play by our pace. And honestly, I respect that, because the most remote thing about Love Valley isn't the drive, it's the mindset. The decision to stay small, stay weird, and stay committed to an identity when the rest of the world is trying to speed up. And the next town on our list proves that remote can look totally different again, because sometimes the most unbelievable story isn't about culture at all. Sometimes it's about language and what gets preserved when a community is cut off. Number 3, Ocracoke. Let me tell you how you know Ocracoke is different before you even get there. There's no bridge. If you want to reach this place, you don't just drive in. You take a ferry. You literally disconnect from the mainland for a while and float your way into a town that feels like it's living in its own lane. And once you step off that boat, you get it. This isn't remote because it's deep in the mountains. It's remote because the ocean decided it should be. Ocracoke sits on the southern tip of Ocracoke Island in Hyde County, out on the Outer Banks. The whole community is small, under 800 people, and it's actually shrunk over time. But here's what's unbelievable. For a place with such a tiny population, Ocracoke carries layers of history like a thick old book. And the first hidden thing isn't even a building, it's a voice. Some locals still speak with what people call the Ocracoke brogue, or the hoy-toiter accent. It's one of those sounds that makes you stop mid-sentence and go, wait, what did you just say? And it exists because this island was isolated for so long. When the same families live, fish, and work in the same waters for generations, language starts doing its own thing. But here's the quiet twist that makes it hit harder. That accent is fading. Younger people grow up more connected now, more influenced by tourism and outside life, and the island's secret language starts getting smoothed out. So the thing that makes Ocracoke special is also the thing that could disappear without anyone noticing, unless you're listening. Now, if you want the big dramatic history, Ocracoke has that too. This is the water where Blackbeard met his end. November 22nd, 1718, the Battle of Ocracoke. Think about that. You can stand on a calm beach today and realize this was once a stage for one of the most famous pirate stories in America. Then the story jumps forward again and the island flips from pirate legend to real-life survival. Ocracoke Lighthouse was built in 1823 and it's still one of the oldest operating lighthouses in North Carolina. It wasn't built for tourists. It was built because the inlet and the shoals out here shift and change, and ships needed a guide to make it through. That's the island in one image. Beautiful, but always moving, always a little dangerous. And then comes the most unexpected chapter of all. On this vacation island, there's a small British cemetery. In World War II, on May 11th, 1942, a German U-boat sank a British trawler, the HMT Bedfordshire. All 37 men were lost, and 4 bodies washed ashore here. Ocracoke's people buried them, quietly, respectfully, like the ocean handed to them a piece of a war they never signed up for. And just when you think this is all old history, the modern reality shows up. In 2019, Hurricane Dorian pushed storm surge around 4 to 7 feet onto the island. People were trapped. Some had to climb into attics and wait for rescue boats. That's the part outsiders forget about remote places like this. The ferry ride feels romantic until the weather turns, and then no bridge stops being cute. My takeaway is simple. Ocracoke proves isolation can preserve a community's voice and identity, but it also makes that identity fragile. One storm, one generation, one big shift, and the island changes. So when you hear Ocracoke, don't just think beaches. Think of a town cut off by water, holding on to a disappearing accent, standing on top of pirate legends, war memories, and hurricane reality all at once. And the next town on our list takes remote back to the mountains, where the altitude itself becomes the story. Number 2, Beech Mountain. Let me start with a fact that sounds like it shouldn't be true in North Carolina. Beech Mountain sits at about 5,506 feet. That's high enough that people brag about it as the highest town in the East. And once you're up there, you feel it. The air changes, the view opens up. Even the silence sounds different, like you're closer to the sky than the rest of the state. Here's the first twist. This highest town isn't some big mountain city. It's tiny most of the year. The full-time population is around 550. You can blink and miss the whole downtown. But Beech Mountain has this weird superpower where it doesn't live like a normal town. It lives like a switch, because in winter, the place can swell to about 10,000 people. In summer, around 5,000. So it's basically 2 towns sharing one mountaintop. One version is quiet, almost isolated, where everybody knows everybody, and the roads feel like they belong to locals. The other version shows up when the season flips, and suddenly you've got crowds, traffic, weekend energy, and that feeling of, wait, where did all these people come from? And the reason is pretty simple. Beech Mountain is built around escape. Escape from heat, for one. One visitor guide even points out that summer temperatures up here rarely go above about 75 degrees. Think about that. Down the mountain, North Carolina can be sticky, sweaty, heavy. Up here, it's like the air conditioner is set to mountain. That alone makes people fall in love with the place. Then winter hits, and the mountain turns into a machine. Beech Mountain Resort opened back in 1967, and it's not just a little bunny slope. It has about 95 skiable acres, a vertical rise around 830 feet, and snowmaking that covers 100% of the slopes. That detail matters because it shows you what Beech Mountain really is. A town that depends on seasons, and a town that learned how to control the season a little too. But here's the plot twist I didn't expect the first time I heard about Beech Mountain. There was a Wizard of Oz theme park up here. Yes, really. Land of Oz opened on June 15, 1970, on a mountaintop in North Carolina. Like somebody looked at this quiet ridge line and said, you know what we need up here? The yellow brick road. And for a while, it worked. Beech Mountain wasn't just a ski town, it was a year-round dream factory. Then the dream cracked. In 1975, a fire burned major parts of the park, including Emerald City areas and gift shops. And even though pieces of the place carried on for a bit, the park eventually closed in 1980. That's the part that feels very Beech Mountain to me. Big ambition, big imagination, and then reality swings in with the bill. But it doesn't end there, because Land of Oz didn't stay dead. It came back in a smaller, controlled way through limited events like Autumn at Oz and special tours. That's such a perfect metaphor for this town. Beech Mountain survives by changing shape, by scaling up, scaling down, and finding a way to keep the feeling alive even when the original version can't last. My personal takeaway is this: Beech Mountain is rural America living on experience. It's not a town that survives because it's convenient. It survives because it feels like somewhere else. Cooler, higher, stranger, and somehow more nostalgic than you'd expect. So if you want an unbelievable story that isn't buried underground or washed away by water, Beech Mountain is your proof that altitude can rewrite a town's entire identity. And the next place on our list brings us back down from the clouds into a town where the unbelievable story isn't the weather. It's what the map says, and what the town insists on being anyway. Number 1, Henry River Mill Village. You want a hidden place in rural America that feels like you stepped into the wrong timeline. Take one quick exit off I-40, drive a few minutes, and suddenly you are staring at what looks like a ghost town trapped in the trees. And here's the first twist. This isn't middle of nowhere. It is basically 1 mile south of Hildebrand, close enough to the highway that you could have passed it 100 times and never known it was there. Henry River Mill Village was a real company town, not a movie set, not a Halloween attraction. A working textile village that started taking shape around 1905, built like a tight little system. The mill sat at the center, the company store watched over everything, and the workers' houses lined the valley like somebody arranged them on purpose. At one point, there were roughly 35 mill houses here. Today, about 20 still stand inside the historic district. And when you walk past them, you feel the second twist hit you right in the chest. A lot of those homes did not even have indoor plumbing. Each one had a privy out back. It is hard to picture that kind of daily life now because we live in a world where the smallest inconvenience gets a 5-star review or a 1-star tantrum. Then you step into the old company store and you realize this place wasn't just about work. The store sold necessities, sure, but it also controlled the town's rhythm. People bought things with script. And if you want the detail that sounds fake but isn't, the company even had its own kind of change token. Locals called it Doogaloo. Imagine getting paid, going to the store, and getting your change back in company money. That is not just commerce. That is a whole world with the gate locked from the inside. Now here's where the story turns dark in the quiet way rural places often do. The mill shut down in 1970. The town started emptying out. And then a fire hit the mill in 1977, like the final door slamming shut. After that, the village didn't vanish overnight. It just sagged into silence. Roof lines drooped, windows broke, nature started taking back what industry borrowed. And then, out of nowhere, Hollywood showed up. Henry River Mill Village became District 12 in the Hunger Games. The same cracked streets, the same worn houses, the same company store and dam suddenly became the image of fictional poverty for millions of people. One house on the East Edge was even destroyed during filming. That part always gets me. A real place already struggling, and the camera comes in and literally breaks a piece of it to make the story feel real. Here's the final twist, and it is the reason this entry belongs at number 10. This village looks abandoned, but it isn't completely dead. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places on May 9th, 2019. There are tours, there are events. You can even stay overnight. The ticket price for adults is listed around $18 plus tax, so the place that once controlled workers with script and Doogaloo is now selling time, memory, and a chance to walk inside a story. My takeaway is simple. Henry River is rural America in one snapshot. A town built by industry, emptied by collapse, revived by pop culture, and still standing in that strange space between history and entertainment. It is hidden in plain sight, and it asks a question that sticks with you. When a place becomes famous for looking broken, do we ever learn who it was before it broke? And that's the part that surprised me most about North Carolina's hidden towns. None of these places are just dots on a map. They're proof that rural America can hold whole worlds inside a single valley, a single shoreline, even a single back road you've driven 100 times without noticing. Some towns disappeared because water rose, some were washed away, some were built on hard work then left behind, and some are still here, hanging on by tradition, by weather, by seasons, or by a story people refuse to let die. Now I'm curious, which town hit you the hardest and why? Was it the one that vanished or the one that's still fighting to stay itself? If you want more hidden places like this, tell me which state we should explore next. And if you enjoyed this ride, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because the next list is going even deeper.